Hey, so excited to have our good friend Adam Outland with us, Southwestern Consulting. And man, I am thrilled to have you on the podcast. We met probably a couple of months ago, Insanely Tactical.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and have become fast friends. You know, a
Yes.
lot of similar vision, values, and beliefs. Love God, love people, love our families, love building business and making a difference together.
Yeah.
And so many of you listening to the podcast know in the Houston market, we have a Loan Officer Collective lunch that is the second Friday of every month. So make sure to stay a part of the podcast. But you came out to the collective this last month, and man, we had a record turnout.
Yeah.
And then you were able to share with the group. And I said, Adam, you've got to come be on the podcast. And so here we are. Joining the podcast, but you know, you said some things. We've been really focused on business planning, and in the business planning, here's what we know. It's easy to put it down on paper. It's a little harder to execute. And where most people fail is not in the creativity or strategic plan. It's in the mindset to take the next step. So, hey, wanted you to come in today and just talk about what you shared at the Loan Officer Collective.
Absolutely.
So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, and thanks for having me on. And honestly, thanks for the invitation to the collective. That was a great event.
Yeah.
Great turnout, great engagement, and one of the things I really appreciated about the being there with you was getting the mic
get it
set up. One of the things I really appreciated about being there with you was just the dynamic of the people. I mean, everybody was super engaged. People really wanted to contribute to the conversation.
Yeah.
You don't normally always get that at a luncheon. So that was pretty awesome.
Hey, well, do this also. Tell people about your journey. Tell people about your story. Where, you know, a little bit how you got started, because now you're a coach and at a high level helping so many people break records. So what led you into coaching? And then you're coaching in the mortgage space, which is even more unique. So tell us your journey, man.
Appreciate that. I got started when I was 18 years old, and I'll jump around in my story, right? We don't need to hear how much I weighed when I was born. But I really got started my sales career when I was 18. I jumped on this opportunity to do a very bizarre, because it's so difficult, summer program. And that summer program was me selling educational books door to door. 85 hours a week. I would sell these educational books, this SAT preparation for high school kids, starting around 7:30 a.m., 8 in the morning, and I would not stop knocking on doors until about 9:30, 10 at night.
That's crazy.
Monday through Saturday. And but I owe it to that company, because they taught me all that I know about character in the face of adversity, and everything that I knew about ethical selling that helped me get to where I am. And so it was really fundamental for me. I was never a champion at sports. That's my wife, right? I think you brought her up. She's a NCAA champion, Division I athlete, All-American, right, from University of Maryland. Yeah. This guy was just really good at eating food. So if I got an award for that,
you would win.
I would win it. I would win it.
Brownies and cookies.
Sports wasn't my gift. Academics, I was okay, but I wasn't great. And so when this came along, I wanted to see if I could really shine in the space of sales. If that might be what I was brought here to partly do. And I think with the right conditioning and training, I got there. But for all the listeners out there, I'm a big believer that sales is not something you're necessarily born with. You might have a natural gift with people, but I was the number one worst person in my organization of all the students out there selling my first 3 weeks of my first summer.
The number one worst.
Something to be really proud of.
Very
right
proud
there.
of.
But it was week 3 where mentorship and guidance and a really good leader helped me turn around what I was able to do. And the 4th week, I was number 1 in my group, and I stayed number 1 in the group of about 30 students I was with throughout that year. And I would go on through hiring a coach my junior year of college. I know it sounds like a weird thing to do, but I actually hired a professional coach. I knew I could earn some great income over the summer, help pay for school, and I could learn quite a bit if I hired somebody. And so that junior year, I paid somebody to coach me through the whole year. Wow. And the result was me being number 2 company-wide out of closer to 3,000 people.
Wow.
And having the number 1 organization and the top 3 team production all in 1 year. So that taught me that coaching also has tremendous value.
It makes a difference.
Absolutely.
It is absolutely a game changer from being good to great, man. And so, well, how did you get into the mortgage space?
So kind of just through the partnership. So fast forward about 9 years, right? And then I joined Southwestern Consulting, and when you join Southwestern Consulting, you go through a certification. It's a rigorous interview process. You've got to have a history of being a top 1%er in some industry. And we had a lot of internal training to teach us about the ins and outs of the mortgage industry. And then I was partnered together based on behavior type and needs with multiple LOs. And what I think we came to understand is that a lot of industries can do a lot of ancestral training where you're only learning from the space itself. And what we found is that a lot of external practices that other businesses have that have nothing to do with mortgage have incredible practices to duplicate in mortgage that no one really does.
Wow.
And so we found a lot of lift through just the psychology of selling and then the mindset and the principles that help other successful business owners grow as well.
That's significant. Well, and you don't really think about it when you're immersed in one space. You think, well, let me get to the top of that space. They'll coach me up.
Right.
Not necessarily removing yourself out of the industry and finding somebody who can see it a little different.
And Steve, you've probably seen it too, but I've actually seen people jump careers to become loan officers. They used to be maybe in insurance or financial services and vice versa.
Yeah.
And a top producer in one space is likely to become a top producer in a totally different space.
Well, athletes, you have the people that have been in the military
Great
because
example.
of their strict discipline.
Yes.
It's amazing to see how they can jump into the mortgage space, use those daily disciplines, applied slightly different, and rise to the top.
Yes.
Significant. We see a lot, I think about Adam Delmonico, who was with us just a few months ago. His third year in the business, 2.5 years, and he funds $42 million. But he was a college athlete. And the challenge is, what's not challenge, it was a huge benefit, is the daily discipline. He knows what it takes, and you do it every day. And you keep getting better a little bit every day. So,
well, don't say that because my wife might become
Tina.
a loan officer.
Yeah, come on, bring Tina in. Hey, come on. We love that.
No, that's awesome.
We
That's
would
a
love
great
that.
story.
Hey, we'll talk. Okay, so now let's talk about this. We're really focused on business planning, and people have great goals, lofty goals. Some of them just want to grow 10 or 20%. How do we bridge that gap? You were talking about thinking differently in 2020 is a large portion of what your business plan should be.
Sure.
Talk about that.
So, maybe we start with the definition of insanity, right?
Yeah, right.
Which is, doing the same thing and expecting different results. That's the common term that we know for insanity. I changed that definition just a hair by saying more specifically that it's not just what you do, but it's how you think. If you plan on being the same person up here in 2020 that you were in 2019, but yet you're expecting huge growth numbers, it's not going to happen. You're not going to grow if you don't change your way of thinking.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we really believe in at Southwestern Consulting, it's something I personally believe in because it happened to me, is that we have to start transformation at the level of thought. And if we have a second, can I share that story
100%.
about Les?
We have as much time.
It hit me like a ton of bricks that what we do is a good thing. When I was on a Southwest flight from Atlanta, I was coming back to Houston, and a really good friend of mine and client at the time, his company had been using our coaching for over a year. We ended up boarding the same plane, totally unintentionally.
Yeah.
Just divine intervention. And he sat next to me, and we got an uninterrupted, 2 hours together, which is hard in the world of business to have. Right. And he drew on a napkin and he said, Adam, this is what I've come to realize in growing an organization that's now got, I think, over 1,500 to 2,000 employees, right? That's who he's in charge of. Yeah. And he said, what I learned is that if you focus on results, or you have a results-based culture, what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up with a lot of burnout people. Yeah. Because if you focus purely on results and you don't understand the activities that get you there, it's like the loan officer that knows they need to, how much they need to close in a year, right? But they don't understand the fundamentals of creating those realtor partnerships, like the actual controllable steps. Yeah. They're going to put a lot of stress and anxiety on themselves because they don't feel like they're in control of their destiny, right?
Yeah, for sure. Results frustrate. When you focus on the results, so activity is what you focus on. Is that right?
Yeah. So what precedes results is activity.
Okay.
Yep. And then activity, I would say, is a great motive. I mean, it's great for motivating. It's great for tracking your metrics, knowing what your conversion needs to be, how you can get better. But what I would say about activity is that if you're only focused on activity, you're cracking the whip all the time to motivate yourself to go out and do the job. If you're a branch manager or you lead a team, you feel like you're the one cracking the whip for all your people to get out there and do the job.
Yeah.
And by the end of the year, you feel burned out. You feel emotionally exhausted.
Oh, because you're driving. All you're doing is driving.
Yes.
So how do we change that in 2020? What are the things that you're coaching your students and people and saying, okay, if thinking is a big piece of how you're going to accomplish your goal, where do you start?
Yeah. And so completing that circuit helps us lead us there. What Les illustrated in that example is he said what precedes activity is how you feel.
Okay.
And by repressing feelings, we don't really get anywhere, right? You actually spoke to that really well. I can't remember exactly what you said at the collective, but you, I think, kind of opened up and you were vulnerable about the fact that of how you've grown personally and professionally. And so much of that had to do with, admitting certain feelings so you could overcome them, right?
That's right.
And that was powerful when you shared that. I was like, man, that takes a lot of confidence to even share that. And so I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I think
for
that
sure.
says a lot. And for me, it was understanding that if we feel underconfident next year, especially if you're sitting across from a top producing realtor that you really want to develop a relationship with, your transference of emotion is you're transferring your underconfidence to the realtor. He's not going to be confident in working with you, right? Yeah. If you feel unmotivated in the morning, if you feel crappy or sick or unhealthy, like that's how you're going to show up for the day. You're not going to put in the activity. And so to your point, what we need to address, what Les shared with me, is what precedes feeling is thinking. And if you can think different, if you can learn how to manage those emotions, increase your emotional intelligence, not just with yourself, but in how you work with others. If you can change your thinking patterns around the decisions that you make every day and how you use your time and how you set your goals, you'll have a transformative effect in your life because it'll affect your feelings, the activity, and the results, right?
So what are you doing to change your thinking?
Yeah.
That's really okay. Now we know the importance of what you're thinking about, because really what you think about ultimately becomes the activity you're going to do or take, or you're going to wake up and one day if your thinking continues to be negative, you're not going to take that step because you're fearful. Yep. How do you change your thinking? What are you doing?
So it's kind of like being an alcoholic, right? Yep. There's a step pattern to actually overcome that. And I bring up that example because the first thing is recognizing you have a problem, right?
A thinking problem.
A thinking problem. A lot of us don't realize that's what we got to address. And the thinking problem starts, Shad Helmstetter, I'll give him credit for an amazing book called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. Very straightforward title. Yeah. But it's an amazing book because what Shad breaks down in there is that there's levels to your thinking. There's levels to your self-talk, what you say to yourself in your head. And I think this illustrates and helps us break down what our addiction and our problem is in our thought patterns. Yeah. A lot of us are addicted to level one thinking. Okay. And level one thinking is saying things like, I can't, I'm not capable. And when we say, I can't, I'm not capable, what we're really doing is we're committing to the negative. We're not even giving ourselves our freedom to say that we could change or we could maybe evolve.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and how many times have you said, I can't? Hey, I can't call that agent, or I can't do that happy hour, or I can't do that event. And then here come the excuses behind it.
100%.
So if you say, I can't, that's level one.
And
recognizing it. So the next time you hear yourself say, I can't, recognizing there is a thinking problem in that area of your life.
Absolutely.
Hey, I can't lose the weight because I can't become more emotionally intimate with my wife because, right?
Yes. And
that's so good.
to be vulnerable myself, none of us are coaches because we're perfect, right? We're coaches because we're heavily on the journey and we're involved in our own self-development and growth. We just like being on that journey with others. Yeah. And my I can't for the longest time was I can't be organized. I'm not good with my time. In college, I was a purebred example of what failure was going to look like if I didn't turn the ship around, right? And it was that self-limiting belief that you're either born with time management skills or you're not, which is a load of, I can't curse on here, BS, right? Yeah, it's just a load of BS. Yeah. And so level 2 is the transformation or the change of thinking from I can't to I need to, I should, I'll try. There's at least a recognition there that you need to change something. So you've arrived there.
Thank God. You're not at level 1. You're at level 2.
However, this is what we talked about at the collective, is that at level 2, it's sneakier because we don't realize we're saying bad self-talk to ourselves. Oh, yeah. Because while we recognize the need for change, the worst part is that we haven't committed to that change.
Yeah. So you recognize it, but there's no commitment to change yet. Hey, and while we're going through these levels too, what we talked about on Friday was you don't have to be at a level 1, 2, or 3 in your whole life. It can be in certain areas of your life. Like you can be winning in one area, breaking through in business, and yet be at a level 1 truthfully in your marriage or in your spiritual growth or in your physical health. So that was a huge revelation too, because we were trying to originally say, oh, where are you at in your overall thinking?
Correct.
And it's not overall thinking. It can be in each area. You can be winning in one and losing in another. But identify it. Then we got to go to step 3. Get to some commitment, baby.
100%. It's a lot like golf, right? It's like the inner game of tennis. I mean, you when I say it's a lot like golf, in a PGA bag, you've got 14 clubs.
Yeah.
Why do you have so many clubs? For all these different situations. You have all these different parts of life, these different strengths. And if you go out on a golf course, you got some people that can drive their irons straight, but they can't putt. Right.
Yeah.
People that can putt, they can't drive. And so it's, you look at this, like you said, all these different parts of the life pie.
Yeah.
And even in your business, you look at your skill set and how you communicate with realtors as one part of the slice.
Yes.
You look at your time management and systems as another. Your motivation and vision is one.
Yeah.
And someone can have great vision and great motivation, but they can be totally level 2 in their skills, saying like, I'm not a good salesperson. I'm not good at communicating.
That's so good.
Right. And so it's better to split it up because it allows you to focus on the areas that you're underconfident in.
Wow, that's great. Hey, and let me say this too, but for our listeners, I'm joining with Shane McGraw in January. We're going to do a business planning webinar, so you guys be looking for that because we're going to address the 7 areas of life.
Love it.
And then what we can do is come back and say, how's my thinking in each one of these areas? Yeah. That's huge. That's a big one. Okay, so we're at level 2, which is we've acknowledged, but we haven't gone to level 3, which says we're committed.
Yeah, level 3.
Okay, so I realize I got to go work out. I acknowledge I need to work out, and I should.
Yeah.
Now, how do I get past I should be working out more?
So level 3 is kind of like this middle step, and I would call it the beginning of effective self-talk and effective thinking.
Okay.
Level 3 is when you say, I never, however, what you're doing is you're committing to change. So you're saying, I never procrastinate.
You're
saying,
flipping it.
I'm not someone who's lazy. And so it's your first level commitment. It's just formed in the negative. And so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that one because I think you can rope that into an effective affirmation for yourself. But level 4 is where we really want to be, which is the I am and I do.
Okay.
And that's the language of committal self-talk, right?
Okay. Hey, well, and go back to this on the affirmations. Yeah. So is that really level 3 is, and I love how you do that. You flip it to the negative. I'm never not procrastinating. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I never procrastinate.
I never procrastinate.
Yes.
So really, you're just trying to build yourself up. And I know it sounds silly, but sometimes you've got to.
Yeah. Yeah, Shad in his book says that one of the ways as a psychologist he helped people overcome their addiction of smoking. Yeah. The psychological aspect was every time they pulled out a cigarette to smoke, he would teach them to say, I'm not a smoker. That's just not who I am. Yeah. And it was first creating that disassociation, that cognitive dissonance with that action that helped him overcome the psychological addiction. So,
okay, so now go to the level 4.
Yeah, level 4 is I am and I do. And I am and I do is the language where you're fully committing and putting your integrity on the line to accomplish something, and you're living into it.
I am a runner. I am a salesman.
I am, and
I am a top producer.
And it can be even, we say things like, you can even use the phrase, some people have trouble with affirmations and self-talk because they feel like they're lying to themselves by saying that. So a different way to change is you can say, I am getting better every single day at my time management. Yeah. Because that's something you can commit to, right? You might not be able to commit to being an expert time management person. Yeah. But you can say, every day I'm getting more organized with the details of my life. Yeah. I always start my day with a plan and I accomplish my goals, right? That's all, great, that's all first person commitment.
Yeah. Hey, and do you have any affirmations that you have, like some general affirmations that you're using or you have written? Would you be willing to share it with the group?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Would you post it in the Loan Officer Leadership?
Yes.
Okay, so Loan Officer Leadership Facebook group. We'd love to see them. Just some affirmations that you're currently using or that you share with others to help kickstart the mindset and beliefs.
Absolutely. And they come, I think they start to come naturally after you've written out a few.
Yeah.
But, some of us, poo-poo affirmations because maybe we grew up with self-help and we're like, I don't believe in it. But the reality is your brain is a computer and you're either wiring it towards ineffective thinking or you're wiring it towards the way you want to live life. And I believe affirmations are a critical part of changing your thinking.
It's huge. Well, and I'll tell you one. So with my son, I take my 8-year-old son to school every morning, and we do a creed we say together. Today I'm here to serve and love people. I mean, it's a whole deal.
Yeah.
And then one of the things John Maxwell said in one of his books, and here's what's really helped me, is he said, say, do it now 50 times a day. So do it now, do it now, do it now, do it now. And what you begin to realize is as Ethan and I have begun to do these affirmations in the morning, where procrastination was a bigger deal, you realize the first thought is, well, do it right now. Don't wait. And so it really does, over time, begin to help you take more action in things that you otherwise would procrastinate in.
And that is an awesome example. I mean, the fact that you're bringing conversations to your son.
Oh, yeah. He hates it sometimes, but I'm like, bro, we're pulling up and we got like 2 minutes to school, and I say, all right, let's do it. And I make him say it with me every morning. And it's 8 sentences that really talk to the character and his identity in Christ.
Man.
And so it's powerful. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's fun. It's a great way to do it.
That's really great.
Hey, and so Adam, as we're talking, just any other thoughts on business planning? We've got guys here that are anywhere from $5 million a year to people that are listening over $100 million a year in production.
Sure.
What are some of the other things you're encouraging people to take a look at as they're business planning and really focusing on 2020?
Well, there's a lot that we can cover there. I think the general focus I've had with a lot of my clients, especially right now, as we get into the holidays, is to really consider not just your annual plan and get into the details and break down and reverse engineer all your metrics, but take a deep breath and look at your 10-year vision. And the reason I think it's so important is because we always say begin with the end in mind. We're really good at doing that in the context of 365 days, like we all do a yearly plan, or we should. But not most of us really start with the ultimate end in mind. We're not reverse engineering our life from the epitaph we want to see on our tombstone, the kind of impact we have with people. Very quickly, I'll share a really powerful conversation I had yesterday. And I wasn't the one delivering this advice, by the way. It was actually up in Spring, Texas. I was sitting down with an incredible leader for a healthcare company. And he told this to me, and it was moving. He said, a few years ago, his son passed away, and that moment, him and his wife totally changed their way of thinking, because any kind of really traumatic life event like that causes you to ask yourself, what the hell am I doing with my time? Yeah. And it didn't cause him to change his career, but what it did cause him to do is live with intention every day, because he saw his life now. He overcame his fear of death, and he said, my life is truly about serving people, and just life itself means that I'm living with abundance. And if I can give people just a little bit more, that's giving my son a worthy memory, right? Yeah. Now imagine starting your year with like that kind of powerful vision where you don't care, you're not attached to the results. Yeah. You're attached to a greater mission. And I, we talked about this before coming on this podcast, but I feel like, without the traumatic event, I don't know, but you've had that transformation. I think you've come into this year with a really powerful new vision for yourself and for others, and how that's changed your actions, right? Oh, 100%.
Well, here's what I have found is I think we struggle sometimes in life to come up with a vision, but sometimes in life I think your vision is cloudy and unclear for a purpose because God's working something out on the inside of you. So when you can't see, just move. And then I believe the vision becomes more clear. All last year, I didn't have a vision, man. Really? I just kept moving. And what I realized was there were opportunities and divine appointments, like you're one. There were other people, and you just realize, okay, if I can just keep moving in the same direction, I may not know what the outcome's going to be, but here's what we learned was life moves at the speed of relationships. And if I'll just stay connected, then I know I'm moving in the right direction. And then what happened was the latter part of this year, vision began to become super clear. But it was because I didn't disconnect. Most people, Adam, disconnect at the point of loss of vision. Yeah. and they say, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with my life, and they back away from everything that they've built up to that point, and they say, well, it's not working. Well, it's not that it's not working, it's that they quit too quickly or too soon, and the breakthrough was a lot closer than what they thought. And here's what happens is, we can't control the outcomes, but I can control the input. So regardless of whether I can see, if I'll keep moving, love people, then it will become clear at some point. You just don't make decisions in peaks and valleys.
Maybe we stay on this point for a second, because that's really amazing what you said, because what happens when most people hear the word vision and a 10-year vision, they almost think more like a 10-year plan, and they try and detail it out as much as they do with their goals. And that actually becomes a problem, because to your point, if you get too granular in your vision, I think it creates tunnel vision. And then you don't open yourself up to opportunities that actually help you live into it, that are outside of your control, right? I think what you did is you kind of have this general feel for what you're about in life.
That's right.
And that drives you to the right relationships. It guides you like a compass to the right people and the right ideas. And then it does start to become clear to you. But you're always kind of you find that the people who are most successful have a very open mind to things, where the people that aren't are very closed-minded, maybe because they have almost too much of a tunnel vision. Does that sound?
Oh, 100%. Well, it's a lot like an airplane. It never takes a true straight course to its destination. It's constantly readjusting. The problem is if I've got it all figured out, it gives me no latitude to pivot. So what we learned this year was, if you can pivot quickly, you can readjust quickly. Hey, and I want to speak to this too, because I want to give people the opportunity to reach out to you. I love what you're doing at Southwestern Consulting, and as we do Insanely Tactical 2020, you're going to be a big part of it. But you know what I've really come to understand? Yesterday, my wife and I spent a half day of coaching with a coach I hired last year, and I met him at an event, an unbelievable coach. I didn't know who he was, but he said a message. He did a seminar at John and Lisa Bevere's Messenger Cup. It was a Saturday morning session, and what he said, like literally, I knew it changed my life. And I reached out to him. He didn't know who I was, and I said, hey, I feel like you're one of the 5 people who are supposed to be in my life. Would you consider coaching me? And he said, absolutely. He said, I don't take a whole lot of coaching students right now, but I'll do it. And so for 6 months, I've been paying him to be my coach. He spent half a day with us yesterday. And what was so interesting is his question is if there was no restraint in money or resource, what would you do? And I mean, we just began to work through that. And it was interesting because Steph and I spent a half day just saying, okay, if there was no restraint in money, no restraint in resource, there's no obstacles, no barriers, what's the vision? And when you begin to lay that out, that's how you start to get crystal clear is, okay, here's where we want to go at the end of our lives. And then you just start saying, okay, what's the mission? How do we do it? Strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, threats, and how does mortgage play into it? How does coaching play into it? And then you can begin to create a more broad roadmap. And then you say, okay, each year we're going to get more granular, but still being flexible to pivot.
So wait, what I'm hearing you say is
powerful.
Get a coach that can hold you to taking the time to.
It wasn't easy, but we did. We just blocked a half day, and then here's what our pattern is too: is we're going to take 3 days out of the holidays, and her and I just go away to our condo and
bravo, man.
Just try to.
So cool.
Well, but here's the thing: we haven't done it in 5 years, but we just realized that we've got to live intentionally. And on purpose, we need coaches and people that can speak into our lives.
Absolutely.
So,
and just 2 last-minute seconds on that is the lady who wrote the latest biography for Abraham Lincoln. It was called the something of Enemies or Friends.
Okay.
Anyway, we can look it up later. But she is known for her famous documentaries on these past presidents.
Yeah. In
an interview a couple weeks ago, she said, a common trait of all these incredible leaders of our country is that they always took time, often with their spouses. Like Winston Churchill's wife was an amazing part of his success. She's a brilliant woman. Yeah. And sometimes getting away and just having that vision, that freedom to brainstorm in silence, and that creativity come back in. We all need creativity if we're going to own our goals and be inspired, right?
Hey, and that comes in the margin. Most of us don't live life with margin, and that's here's what I learned about vision last year. What was interesting is there was no vision because there was no margin.
Yes.
You can't dream when there's no margin. And so you have to back away and say, okay, hey, you know what else you're scared to dream. How many originators, how many mortgage people on this podcast, if you boiled it all the way down and you threw out that BHAG of a goal, would be so scared to say that goal because there's so much fear behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I think we live in a fearful society, man. It's crazy. The fear of failure, the fear of rejection. What if I lose it all?
Mm-hmm. An interesting study. No, 100%. You're right. And it happens to everybody. Us
Oh
too,
yeah,
me,
100%.
A really interesting study that John King, who's one of the authors for Tribal Leadership, did years ago is they took these high level, these are executive MBA grads who are in high leadership, potential to be the next CEO of Fortune 500 companies. They had them do this blind, anonymous survey. And one of the questions is, what's your greatest fear? And almost unanimously, everybody's fear that they wrote down was the fear that maybe people will find out that I'm not as great as they think that I am, right? And as we transition and talk a little bit about leadership, I think one of the greatest fears a lot of branch managers harbor, and even regionals, right, is in all of us that lead a team.
Yes.
Is what if I'm not as great, or what if people that really lift me up find out I'm not as invincible as they think I am, and it's a real fear, and that fear does kind of hold us back sometimes from being as vulnerable and as real with people as we can be.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think that's why we have to. It goes back to relationships. It's funny. My hope is that our relationship, I encourage you, and that being 100%. Around each other, you're drawing out the best. And sometimes when you don't feel it, you don't see it, we can encourage you, champion you, keep running, man. You're doing great. You're making a difference.
Yes.
You have to be in and around people who see what you can't see.
Yes.
Both blind spots are good and bad. So,
absolutely.
Hey, well, any closing thoughts?
I think this has been a great conversation. I mean,
that's great. Yeah.
Finding people who connect with exactly the values that you and I are talking about are the people really worth spending time with and being around with. And this is the kind of message that attracts the right people. Yeah. I've been talking about these things fearlessly lately because I realized that at this stage of my life, I get to choose to do business with the people I want to do business with. Yeah. Right. And man, this week I was in Phoenix, Arizona. I was in Las Vegas with different teams. And it was so cool to see the right people connect with the right message and join in that journey. And it fills the heart and makes you feel like you're on the right path when that happens. So, so hopefully there's a bunch of you on this podcast that connects with you.
Well, and listen, and so join Adam at Southwestern Consulting so they can tell them where they can find you.
So in all honesty, connect with me on LinkedIn. That's such an easy way. That's where I live. That's the platform I live on. Okay. Facebook is great too. And you can go to southwesternconsulting.com. You can find my little bio in there and connect with me there.
You Google it. So, you can just Google Adam Outland.
Yeah, I'm a big deal on the internet.
Yeah.
No, it's probably like the third result. Luckily, the last name makes it easy for me to be found.
Yes, it's there you go. Well, and listen, guys, y'all connect with him. He's a part of our Facebook group too, and we created that because here's what we realized is we needed a place where people could ask questions and engage and connect. It's a private group, so if you're not a part of it, just ask to be a part of it, and we'll get you in. But we're so thrilled to have you. Thank you for your friendship.
Thank
you for what you're doing in the mortgage and real estate space. But I'm just thankful to be in and around people who are committed to make a difference in the lives of just this world. I mean, what we're doing, it's more than just making money. It's about making impact. I love, we're not looking to be famous. We're looking to be effective.
Right.
And I'm thankful to be on the journey with you. And you get to take us out with one of the last podcasts of the year, man.
All right. Let's wrap it up, baby. Yeah.
Hey, so listen, guys, remember this. #grow and grind. Be purposeful in your growth. Relentless in your effort. Remember, anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Just get started. See you.